What's up guys, it's Matt here, back with my good friend Flo and another episode of Busting the Mario Kart Tour Myths. Thank you guys so much for the feedback on the previous episodes, and we are excited to bring the flagship episode today. That's right, we are going to dive into maybe the most intimidating topic to dive into when it comes to data analysis and community kind of engagement. That's right, we're going to be doing some myth busting around the Mii meta. Flo, thank you so much for joining. You have, I know, and I'm just going to tell the audience that you've been working really hard in the background, running some numbers, crunching some data, running some experiments in preparation for this episode. And it's been a long topic of discussion that we have spent time over. And so I'm so excited to dive into this today. How are you, man? Are you excited?
Yeah, I'm very excited. Of course, I've worked a lot on these topics, on these experiments. I had little thoughts, what could be interesting, what do we want to share, what is also interesting and not too complicated for the viewer to understand. So I hope that we find a good way to present the data, and let's see how you like it.
Awesome. Yeah, so guys, hit like, hit subscribe. Thank you so much for the support on the channel. Got heaps coming on the channel. In particular, I'm working in the background on a new set of membership tiers, which I'm really excited to bring to you. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be really cool. It's not long away. So that's going to be exciting. But tonight, to me or not to me? That is the question. Very philosophical, very good. Flo, I know you came up with that one, so good job. But let's dive into this topic of Miis. So we know that the Miis have really broken the game. If you're relatively new, you're not sure what this all means, and you've just discovered this video, welcome first of all. You found a good place to be. But when it comes to the Miis, they've really changed the game. People have said they're broken. People have said that it's ruined the game. Some people might feel that way. Obviously, a lot of people are huge fans for new drivers, and really the Miis are so powerful with their extra base points from a scoring perspective that it's brought into question the validity of the longevity, the long-term value, and the purpose of even plus skilled drivers that can score well that are not Miis. So first of all, we're going to dive into some of this, and the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to define, or just I've been basically staying connected in the community, hearing what people were saying, and I wanted to capture some ideas or beliefs, or even you could say myths, just different ideas that people are saying and believing in the community. And there's really two categories of these things that people are saying. The first thing that people are saying is that Miis are so overpowered. They're just, they're so overpowered. They're overpowered everything else. They've ruined the game, so on and so forth. The second lot of things that people are saying is that Miis are overrated. So on the opposite end of the spectrum, they're saying Miis aren't actually as great as you think they are. And we want to actually, we're not here to say that the Miis are the best. We're not here to say that Miis are terrible. We're actually here to look at both sides and present an objective argument that uses data to break this all down. And I have to thank you, Flo, for that. So let's go ahead and look at some of these things. Firstly, the Miis are overpowered. So here's the first one. Normal high-end drivers can't compete with Miis for scoring potential. So we're going to dive into this as we go. So let's break these all down, and then we're going to come back and look and make some conclusions from what we've looked at to look at, have we debunked these different beliefs, or are they still true? So that's the first one. Normal high-end drivers, non-Miis, can't compete with Miis for scoring potential. The next one is Miis give more scoring potential for the same amount of tickets. So obviously we know that's true on an individual level when it comes to, if you take a driver to 6 and double cap, if you've got a bunch of Miis, obviously you're going to get more base points. But does that actually translate over their whole coverage, over all their courses, to higher scoring potential? So we'll be taking a look at that and the data behind that as well. Moving on to the third one, Miis are the only drivers which have long-term value going forward. So, of course, infamously, we thought that the Miis would stop coming out, that new Miis would stop being released, and instead, we're still getting new Miis, and we're still getting added base points. So, I don't even know what the number is anymore, but it's extremely high. And so, does that mean that non-Miis will no longer be used at some point? Well, we're going to dive into that as well. The last one here is that the gold Mii and the question mark block Mii are must invest drivers, and there might be more than just that one. Some people might say that gold Mii is the only one, but we're going to dive into that as well. Looking on the other side, Miis are overrated. Firstly, free-to-play players should only invest in non-Miis. And this is especially focusing on free-to-play players who typically are focused on ranked, not ACR as well. So that needs to be said. The next one, Miis are only useful for higher spenders with every Mii unlocked. Ooh, this one's a spicy one. So hopefully we can break that down. Then we've got Miis aren't good for ranked coverage. And I think that's it. So firstly, before we dive into this, Flo, let me know what your thoughts are on the Miis overall. What's your strategy when it comes to Miis? What's your kind of playing style? Walk us through that. And I'm just trying to get these slides to go back. Sorry guys, just 1 second.
Just waiting until the slide is back, but
go. Go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, in terms of Mii suits, I have a maxed gold Mii and a question mark block Mii racing suit. So maybe this point on the left side, the last one, is true for me or from my account type. I also have the Larry Mii racing suit maxed out, and apart from that, I think I have PT Mii at 6 double cap and Nabbit Mii at 6 double cap. So I have 5 Miis that I actually invested in. And the rest are non-Mii drivers that I collected during the years and leveled up during the years, of course. Some drivers like Meowser existed before the Miis were introduced, so you probably invested in him, and then afterwards right. You don't need to cover all of his tracks from scratch. Of course, you might have some tracks, especially Gold Mii has a couple of tracks that Meowser also covered, so Gold Mii is then now the better option, but you don't have to to fill these gaps because you're already covered with some decent non-Mii driver there. I think we can already switch to the next slide, because what I did here is how would an optimal account look like, and what would be the usage of Mii drivers and non-Mii drivers. So to analyze that, I ran ticket time, and I just assumed an account that has 8 quad cap drivers across the board, and also carts and gliders. It has 400 player level 400. It always reaches 100% of the action count, so the whale account that will never be reached, and also with the best skills, just to see what is possible. And also to look what would be the distribution like. And as we can see here on the left-hand side, there is a table of the drivers that I used for more than 2% of the courses, taking course weights into account. So it means 2% of the courses where there are some city courses that are, for example, not that frequently. And then, of course, there's always a Mii version and a non-Mii version of a course. So if you look at ACR or also at ranked, the first race of every cup is Mii boosted. So every Mii that is mid shelf there, it gets boosted to top shelf, and also from bottom to mid shelf, but that's not that interesting for us. So you actually have to consider the mid shelf buffs for the Miis as well in order to get their true value. And then I think this is a very important point, because a lot of players just count the number of top shelf tracks, and then of course it's for Miis it's something like 30, and for others it's something like 50, but then you have another 30 mid shelf tracks. And if you also weight them with 1/3, something like that, and you also consider that there's double Mii boost in the Mii Cup, the first race, you actually have a lot more appearances for Miis than it first looks like if you only look at the top shelves. So this is all taken into account. And as we can see here, we have in the top 12, so the drivers that cover more than 2% of the tracks, we have 10 Miis at the top, in the top 10. along with two more non-Miis being Charge Check Gold and PT Piranha Gold. You also see that they are all plus skills, so I guess most of you are aware, but we're speaking of Coinbox, Boomerang, Lucky 7, and Giant Banana. And of course, if you both have a plus skill and also have the advantage of the Mii-based points, then it's actually a safe investment. And then of course some drivers. So Giant Banana is arguably the weakest one of these plus skills. So you can see that the yellow Mii Racing Suit has the best coverage out of the four, with of course the Morton Mii Racing Suit and the Wiggler Mii Racing Suit being rather new, and the Donkey Kong Mii Racing Suit being debatable. Yeah, it's also okay. I think it's okay, number 14 on this list, so it's really not that bad. But still, it's nothing in comparison to the drivers that we see, especially on top of the list. So that's what would be possible choices. And if you, for example, would decide to max out all these drivers, which is absolutely possible for a whale or dolphin account, and maybe if you started investing early enough, even for a gold pass account. So as I mentioned, I have maxed Gold Mii, question mark Block Mii, and Larry Mii, and I'm on the way for PT Mii and Nabbit Mii. Charge and Check Gold and PT Piranha Gold are both 6 double cap for my account. So of course there's a long way to go, but at least there's some progress into that direction. And if you would have these 10 drivers, then you would be optimally covered on 61.86% of all courses, which is quite a lot considering that these are only 12 drivers. But then you would be, in 3 out of 5 courses, you would have the optimal choice in terms of scoring potential.
So just to interject here, I guess it shouldn't surprise any of us to see that all of the plus skill Miis would be the top 10 at least. Obviously Charge and Chuck Gold, PT Piranha Gold, lovely to see them on there, being non-Mii drivers, but shouldn't surprise us all that much, right? Because of those additional base points, and you're already investing into 68 drivers. Of course the top ones are going to be the Mii drivers, because they're going to give you the most every course that they get, you're going to use them in theory, especially with ones like Gold Mii. If you're I'm assuming you've valued Coinbox over Boomerang in this case, have you? Or Boomerang is higher valued than...
Yes, so the large Coinbox drivers are valued higher than Boomerang. Okay. And then Boomerang is tied with medium Coinbox drivers, but better than small Coinbox drivers. That's why you, for example, don't see Larry Wintertime here. Larry Wintertime also has great coverage, but of course the hitbox is not as big, so I would expect it for an optimal account. You also want to have the larger drivers if they are available, and that's why Larry Wintertime didn't appear here.
Of course. Yeah, so I mean, I guess it doesn't surprise me, but just looking as we go over to the right-hand side there, I'm looking at the driver type distribution, and that chunk of non-Miis is surprising to me. Like, are we saying that still, I mean, I'm not sure what percentage that is, but is it like 30% of your driver coverage is still coming from non-Mii drivers?
That's true, yeah. So we have 30% non-Miis, 70% Miis. And if you look at the left side of the table, so we have something like 56% that are covered just by, so 56 percentage points out of these 70 percentage points are actually covered by these 10 plus skill Miis. So the amount of non-plus skill Miis that are optimal choices on any of the tracks is rather small. So we're speaking of it should be then 14%, something like that, or even less, because the Donkey Kong Mii Racing Suit, Wiggler Mii Racing Suit are not even considered. And then we have 30% where we actually have non-Miis as the best options. As we can see here, Charge and Check Gold, PT Piranha Gold as the best drivers there. And then of course a lot of Coinbox and Boomerang drivers follow, and a handful of Lucky 7 drivers, not a single Giant Banana one. So you always have a better option if you want to optimize the scoring potential on this particular track, and also reaching the action counts. Something like Toad Tourist, which will also come later, is not included at all here. Neither are Poochie or Light Blue Shy Guy Explorer, for example, as some prominent new drivers of,
Yeah.
like you said, in the jumper.
And I think some people would be probably like disappointed to hear that, but and the reason they're disappointed is probably because if they're invested in those drivers, then they'll be using them in ranked all the time and really enjoying that. But we've just got to remember this is the optimal coverage account, so it's not representative necessarily of the free-to-play player or the gold pass player, or the ranked, someone focused on ranked necessarily as well. Obviously, it's very hard to predict what course will appear in ranked, so we can't, I guess, filter to one particular, just ranked courses, because we don't know what courses will appear in ranked. Was there any more points you want to make about this optimal account before we move to the next slide? Because I'm really keen to dive into what maybe a more realistic example might be, or like to compare with free-to-play, or dive a bit deeper. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we can move on. And the last point that you mentioned was really important. As you can see here, just to make the last fact that is here on the slide. So for this optimal account, you need 68 drives. That's of course quite a lot. Even if you want to 6 double cap them, that's a quite large amount of tickets, and not feasible for most or 99.99% of the accounts. So.
Cool. All right, let's move along, and here we've got a slide that's looking to unpack scoring potential a little bit more. So can you, for the layman's like me who are looking at this and go, what exactly am I looking at? What was this experiment like? What exactly were you trying to achieve through this experiment? And hopefully we can get some insight from your learnings of this experiment.
Yeah, so let's start with the right side, because that's what we have seen on the previous page as well. So that's the whale setup. We have all items at 8 quad capped. We have then also all Miis, of course, which are currently then 61. So we have 600 base points, which is then a maximum of 2,210. Speaking of this vacation tour right now, which is of course increasing in the upcoming tours. We already know that we will get 2 more Miis next tour, and then another one the tour after. So yeah, it's still going on. But yeah, right now 600 additional base points for each Mii, and then we also assume that the action count handicap is 100%. So that's possible for some of the best players, or especially if you're looking for at rank, but across the board it's probably quite difficult. On the other side, we see what could be an example for a free-to-play or some lower spending tier account. So we just assume that we only have 21 Miis, so this gives us 200 base points, and we also excluded the gold Mii here, because the gold Mii is of course very powerful. I think it also has now close to 50 or maybe even over 50 tracks, not including Mii boosted mid shelves. So this is of course something that you should aim for if you somehow have the capabilities to do so, because this Mii is of course very powerful, but a lot of players can't use gold Mii because they haven't reached a tier 80 yet. And then we see, I just made some assumptions. So of course this might be very difficult if you're a very new player. Then 7 quad cap normal is of course also out of reach. But make sure that these are just some assumptions, and you probably don't need all the normals at 7 quad cap, but this is rather than average, and probably you don't need maybe a Lemmy or Baby Daisy, whatever, at all. But then on the other hand, you have a Larry that has a boomerang, which is helpful, 8 quad cap, because you invested all the tickets that you get as normals in him. Same for supers. You probably won't have the tickets to have all supers at 6 single cap. That's also not feasible for Go Pass account, but just to make sure that you would have the option to unlock supers at level 6, because this is also possible for a free-to-play account if you save up the tickets and aim to make it a little bit more fair, just single cap them. Probably a rather more typical super is looking like 5 double cap or even triple cap for a free-to-play.
Yeah.
Or maybe only 4. And then just to also have an average around the high ends, for double cap is the level here. Of course, there might be courses where you aren't covered at all. On other courses, you have 6 double cap because those are your favorite items, or items that very well cover all courses. So these are just some average values to play around. And then what is also important is that we also decrease the action count handicap, because the top 10, top 100 players, or some very good players that don't have the highest defending tier accounts can reach this 100% action counts, or maybe you're lucky and pull some nice frenzies along the road. That's also possible, but on average you probably won't reach this 100% action count, but rather something like 75. And then maybe if you're only going for coin, for double coiner or something like coin banana, then you're already at 80% if it's non-plus skill. And for boomerang, if you're not boomboxing, then maybe it's something like 65. So this is probably some casual player that goes in on ranks and gets some nice runs with 1 or 2 decent frenzies and then jumps on to the next track. So this is just to have some different setups, and now look how the scoring potential is affected for these 2 accounts.
Right.
Let's start with the right side, because this is the account that we also spoke of on the last slide, the optimal account. So if we sum up all the scores over all the track variations, then we have 75 million in total. And now it is interesting, what would happen if we remove all Mii drivers or all non-Mii drivers from this account and see how this scoring potential changes. And if we, for example, remove all the non-Mii drivers, then we would only lose 2.1% of this total score, which is not a lot.
Wow.
So it really just means that we only use, of course, the normals and supers, along with the 61 Mii drivers, and you would only lose 2.1% of the scoring potential. That's really way less than I expected.
That's actually the opposite, I think, of what a lot of people have been saying. They're like, whales have to do it to compete. Though maybe what I would say is at the level they're competing at, maybe they need that 2%, or they believe they need that 2% to go for, I don't know, top 10, as an example.
Yeah. I'm just having a look at the table again, because I'm not completely sure whether we missed up some minuses there. Just to make sure, I think there's some minus missing. So the minus 2.1% means that the non-Miis are excluded. So we excluded the non-Miis.
Minus non-Miis. Got it.
Yeah, and then the next row would be we exclude all the Miis. So if we exclude all the Miis, for the whale account, we would lose on 6.8% of the scoring potential. So that's way more. That's of course also mean that we remove all the plus skill Miis. So what if we only remove the non-plus skill Miis? So that means that all non-Miis are included and all plus skill Miis are included, like gold Mii, for example. Then we still would lose 5.65% of the total scoring potential. So this is quite a lot, but this is of course only speaking of a whale or this optimal account that we just covered. So if we now look at the other column, speaking of a free-to-play account or the one that we just mentioned, there of course the total score is way lower, so it's 31 million. And what happens here if we remove the non-Miis? So first of all, I just selected 21 popular Miis, of course gold Mii excluded, but all the other plus skills are included because those are the ones that you buy, and then some other ones just to fill up the base points. And if we would only have these 21 Miis, then of course, along with the supers and normals, then of course we would lose more of the total scoring potential. So in this case, 8.9. Keep in mind, so now the right column would be 61 Miis. This one is just 20 more Miis. That explains a little bit why this is way higher. But what is also interesting to see here, if you only have 21 Miis and also these lower base points, is that if you would remove all the Miis, so you're just focusing on non-Miis, then you would only lose on 1.08%. So that's really not a lot. You can ignore Miis if you want as a free-to-play player, and you won't miss out on that much of a scoring potential. Speaking of the general coverage and the general ACR, not even ACR because this is then also tour dependent, but just the scoring potential over all courses in general.
That makes a lot more sense now that you've mentioned that it's taking away, like for example, yeah, the 2.1% for the whales there. You're just taking away the non-Miis. So might be sad because most whales are probably invested in, you know, Gold Cooper free running or this, you know, Peach Vacation. They've got some nostalgia attachment there, but actually you take all of those away, and unfortunately, you know, for an account that has lots of Mii investments, those drivers would just simply aren't being used anymore, which shows the real difference in the community. You know, these are kind of opposite in a way, so you can see that there could be like a different view from whales to free-to-play accounts. Of course, this is just one example, and this is quite maybe a cherry-picked or extreme example, especially with that whale account, but it's still really interesting. Should we move to the next slide?
Let's go. Yes.
Cool. All right, so now we were keen to touch on ranked appearances and understand how this shows up in ranked. And I think you looked at the last 10 tours, is that right? Last 10 tours of ranked.
Right.
See
Yes.
the appearance of all of these different drivers. So this is both Miis and non-Miis here. So walk us through what the experiment was here and what the conclusion was.
Yeah, so first of all, on the left side, this is not directly connected with the experiment, that just to see, because we had the one bullet point that Miis are not used in ranked as often. And you can argue that this is true, because if you look at the top of the list, you see Top Tourist, which has an insane amount of 16 appearances in 10 tours. That's really insane. And we have Poochie, then we have Light Blue Shy Guy Explorer. So the top three are non-Miis. Of course, you have to consider these are the last 10 tours. So of course, the drivers are popular that were just released possibly in the beginning of this time period. For example, Poochie was introduced in exactly 10 tours ago, in the second week though, so you couldn't use him on the first week, otherwise he would have 16 as well, because we remember that we had the first week where we couldn't use him on 2 tracks, even if Poochie would cover these 2. And then Totus, I think, was introduced the tour after, so these 2 of course have an advantage here, because it's just their period where they are appearing in race. But we also see a couple of other drivers there, and if you look further down, we see that we have, for example, the Piranha Plant Mii Racing Suit as the strongest Mii with 12 appearances. So, of course, we all noticed that Gold Mii, which is also on the list with 10 appearances, was quite frequently in the ranked, but not all of the players have access to the Gold Mii, and others decided to not level it. Maybe you still have other Miis that are interesting, and indeed there are some options. So Piranha Plant Mii Racing Suit with 12 appearances. We can also see in a few minutes that it actually has some overlaps with the Gold Mii Racing Suit, but so a lot of players didn't need it because they had Gold Mii, and you don't have to cover Gold Mii's tracks anymore if you have Gold Mii maxed or close to max. But for free-to-play players, Piranha Plant Mii Racing Suit is actually a quite good option. You could cover these Gold Mii tracks along with probably 4 Gold Mii tracks and then 8 other tracks that appeared in ranked as well. And we also see that there are a couple of other options: Goomba Mii Racing Suit, Ludwig Mii Racing Suit, Roaring Racer Mii Racing Suit from positions 4 to 7. Or shared 5th place together with Toadette Sailor. And then we see a couple of other drivers further down the list. Also Donkey Kong Gladiator already appearing there, since he had some nice boosts in the first tour where it was released, along with the tours after. So I think the distribution is exactly 50-50 here. We have 7 Mii drivers and 7 non-Mii drivers, if I'm not mistaken, and of course the top 3 are all non-Mii drivers, but I would say that Miis still have a decent ranked appearance chance. And of course, we don't see any Morton Mii Racing Suit, Larry Mii Racing Suit, something like this here, because they are plus skills. They are probably more interesting for ACR coverage, but they of course also got their ranked appearances. So don't get me wrong, they are also nice investments, but they are actually other Miis that appear even more often.
It's interesting. I guess our bias is that we see this normal driver with these are all three of those top drivers are really cool designs. They've all got a plus skill, so we want to use them. We want to invest. We want to have fun with that, and so that's our bias. And then you're not looking at the Piranha Plant Mii Racing Suit. You're going, well, the Morton Mii Racing Suit never shows up in ranked, and so therefore you're saying the Miis don't get good ranked appearances. But actually, then the question becomes, should you invest in a non-plus skill Mii if they tend to appear more in ranked? Should you pick that over something like Light Blue Shy Guy Explorer? Should you pick Piranha Plant Mii Racing Suit? Just cherry picking those two examples. So I can see these graphs over the right, and I know you'll be keen to kind of share what your conclusion is around that, or what the experiment was. But yeah, I think I just wanted to say that I think there's like that little bit of that bias, but actually the question becomes can you score just as high or even higher with Piranha Plant Mii Racing Suit at the same like level and cap to say Poochie, who has like a plus skill Lucky 7, but it's not necessarily the best plus skill, same as Poochie, like Light Blue Shy Guy Explorer, and then also Toad Tourist having Giant Banana, so they're not even necessarily the highest scoring plus skills. So what do you think?
Yeah, that's definitely a point. So far we have only looked at appearances, and of course we want to analyze the score as well. And that's then also what is considered in when I created the pie charts on the right side. We'll also look at the details in a minute, but let's just first look what is the general takeaway from these experiments. So just to get a feeling what I've done, so we had the last 10 tours. We of course have six ranked races per tour, so 60 courses in general that we'll have to cover. Keep in mind that the first race in every cup is Mii boosted, so I also took that into account, that you have the Mii advantage there. And then we also had one case in the Mii tour where we actually had the Mii cup and the first week of ranked, so there we have even more Mii variants included. Yeah, so that was a little bit complicated to consider in the experiments, but I managed to do so, and then also had to take into account that of course some buffs came a little bit later. So if, for example, from today's perspective, you would use Donkey Kong Gladiator on Bowser's Castle 4, but back then when it was in ranked, there were only these non-plus skill options. Of course, you had a couple of Miis there and a couple of non-Miis. And now you would use Donkey Kong Gladiator, but back then you couldn't use him. So of course I had to consider this as well. What I did was I have these 60 tracks. I want to cover them the best as possible in terms of scoring potential. So of course, considering that the plus skill drivers like Gold Mii have the highest scoring potential, so I probably want to use it and have it maxed out if I own it. So of course the free-to-play account didn't have access to Gold Mii. They had to cover these quizzes on a different manner, but the other courses also selected Gold Mii because this was the optimal choice. So I again defined some free-to-play settings. As you can see, the action count rate between 0.65 to 0.8, just as we mentioned before. Then the whale account where it is at 1, and then we have a gold pass account, and there I choose between two possible ways. One way is 0.9 across the board, and one way is to have 0.8 for Boomerang, 0.85 for Coinbox, since it also depends on the card size and you maybe not optimal covered there. Then 0.9 for Lucky 7 and Giant Banana, and then 0.95 for non-plus skills, because a double coiner is not that hard to grind nowadays.
Yes.
In comparison to other optimal races. So that's why we have varying action count there. And then of course I also had some setups. So for whales we had 8-4 across the board. For gold pass we had 7-2 across the board. Keep in mind these are averages, so you might be higher covered or lower covered on average. And for free-to-play accounts it's 4 double cap. And what is interesting now is, so of course I defined some budgets. So we have I think for the let me quickly look it up so that I don't say it wrong. So for the whale account, we had 150 level tickets and 125 cap tickets for high end. For gold pass, it's 100 and 100 for both the level and the cap tickets. And for free to play, it's 50 level tickets and 75 cap tickets. Of course, you don't have them available right now. But of course, these accounts existed before 10 shows ago, so you were probably already invested into GoldMe. That's why these numbers might seem a little bit higher than you would now think of, because a free-to-play account probably it's really hard to save up 50 driver level tickets.
Yes, it is.
But you probably have already a GoldMe. In this case, not the GoldMe, but maybe some, I don't know, PD Piranha Mii Racing Suit, maybe at level 6 or level 4.
Yeah.
So these are the first 4 to 9 tickets that get away from this budget. And then you have only 40 left. So that's why I think these numbers are fair. If you have different ideas, please share them below in the comments. But these are the settings that we used. And I think, let's quickly look at the result here. And then we can also look at the detailed coverage of these ranked tracks. But what is very interesting to see here is that even whales only use Miis on half of the tracks. So it's 31 tracks out of these 60 that are covered with Miis, and the remaining 29 are covered with non-Miis and probably plus skill non-Miis in this case. For the Gold Pass account, it's the other way around. So it's 29 Miis with this 31 non-Miis if we use an action count of 0.9 across the board. And then what is really surprising to see in the right top corner is if we use this different action count settings, so a little bit boomerang lazy, but instead focusing on double pointers.
Yes.
And actually it makes sense to the optimal distribution is achieved if we have a lot of Miis included, and then also some non-plus skill Miis included there, because they also had some nice coverage. I think, maybe there was also some Goomba Mii Racing Suit or something like this included there. And for free-to-play, however, it's the other way around. For free-to-play, keep in mind that we here also don't own all the Miis, so the base point advantage is not as strong. And this also results then in the distribution of almost 75% non-Miis versus 25% Miis. I think 44 to 16 tracks, which makes sense. So for free-to-play accounts, you don't have all the tickets available, so you rather choose a Toad Tourist to cover most of the tracks, and have some less tickets available to for broader Mii coverage. So to some extent, I think this confirms what we have thought, but I'm really surprised to see this right upper distribution for the Gold Pass account with the varying action count handicap.
So you're literally blowing my mind right now. Like this is pretty crazy conclusion. Like just for reference, like the reason it's blowing my mind so much is I have two accounts. One's free to play account and one's a Gold Pass account, and I guess the top left and the top right best would depict me as a player, because I'm also increasingly becoming less interested in even grinding Coinbox for hours on end to get the optimal run to get over 200 action counts. Like I'm finding that less exciting and valuing my time more. So I'm becoming less of the bottom left Gold Pass player and more of the top right Gold Pass player, I guess. So for that, it's quite evident that Mii's, going for double coin frenzies with a Mii suit, even a non-plus skill Mii suit, is actually potentially the way to go there. Whereas the free-to-play account, I have actually invested in quite a few Miis, which is an interesting thing. On the free-to-play account, they've been quite good and providing long-term coverage, but certainly I'm struggling, I'm stalling, I'm trying to get to tier 80 on the free-to-play account. I'm really struggling, so that's really interesting. Maybe my downfall has been that I should have spent my very hard to find tickets instead of, I think I've gone in on Morton Mii, and I also went in on DKB for ranked as well during the Mario vs Luigi tour, and it's actually quite good for that account, so that's fine. But perhaps I would have been much better off going in on Toad Tourist or something like you've said. So this is really interesting, guys. So let us know in the comments what you think about this. I think this is pretty interesting. Let us know your play style and how this kind of sits with you as a player, or how does this make you feel. I'd be really interested to hear. I'm ready to get into some conclusions for this. What about you, Flo? Have you got any more points to make around ranked appearances before we move on?
Yeah, I think we should have a quick look at the exact loadouts. So let's look at the table just to get a feeling how these selections would look like from ticket time.
Yeah, sure. So I'm just going to jump over. Hopefully you can see that all right. So I've got an Excel sheet up here. Can you just break down what exactly we're looking at here?
Yes, so we see in the leftmost column that we have all the ranked races that were in the last tour. So on the the bottom 6, those would be one of this tour, and the next 6 that you have currently highlighted from Daisy Cruiser on Lakeside Pub was last tour, and here we see then also. So the current rank cup would be Bangkok Rush 2 RT with just Mii boosted. So you have also the mid-shelf Miis available at the top shelf. Then we have Peach Circuit, and then we have Squeaky Clean Sprint R. And then we can see how these courses would be covered, also as an example for the Whale account, for the Gold Pass account, and for the free-to-play account. And also keep in mind that this is then now considering all the 60 races. So if we now look, for example, at the Whale account, the Whale account would cover this track with the Charger Check Gold that is maxed out, 8 quad capped. This is, of course, a strong option, but if you remember, there is also the question mark block Mii available, 8 quad capped. And if you have it, then of course this is even better. But in this case, we had just a limited amount of tickets available, so ticket time set into it. If you want to optimize the score over all these 60 tracks and you have the limited ticket amount, then Charge and Check Gold is the way to go. Then we see as the second option Birdo Red as the Peach Circuit unlock at level 6. If you're not aware, then now it's the time to take Birdo Red to level 6 if you have it. And then we see Squeaky Clean Sprint are surprisingly the Spike Mii Racing suit at 8 triple cap as the best option. And if we now look to the right, we see the different Gold Pass configurations, and one has the Charge Check Gold at 7 triple cap, which has 0.9 action count handicap across the board, also Birdo Red, and also the Spike Mii Racing suit, of course at the little lower levels, since we don't have that many tickets available as a Gold Pass player. But what is then surprising to see at column F, where we have this varying action count handicap, that we would actually use the Goomba Mii Racing suit at 8 quad capped for this specific account, because it was, as we have seen, 11 times in ranked as well. And if you don't grind out Coinbox to 90%, but you're rather grinding Coinbox to 85%. Keep in mind, I'm always speaking of the handicap and not of the score handicap. And so for the double coiner, it's then 95%. Then you would be better if you would have chosen Goomba Mii Racing suit over the last 10 tours. And then last but not least, we have free to play on the right side, where we have then Also Bird Red at the second option. Then we have Koopa Trooper as the option on the last track, since you have the normal tickets available, you can stand there. And Tour Tourist as the option on the first track. Also 8 quad cap, since we have seen Tour Tourist 16 times in ranked over the last 10 tours. That's of course insane. It's a good chance. Of course, you don't have to level him to 8 quad cap. We see that these levels are of course now very high, but we have also then a couple of other gaps where we have only level 1 drivers, especially on the free-to-play account, just because the score the score is optimal if you have some drivers at a very high level and then other gaps completely at level 1. And then of course it always depends on your rank whether this is actually feasible or needed. So of course there are some rank weeks where you might want to invest something even to level 4 single cap just to have a chance to compete, and then on other weeks you really don't need 8 quads across the board because you're already well covered on 2 tracks, and in the third one you don't need that high of a value. So this is of course what I couldn't take into account, but it's nevertheless, I think, an experiment that has some interesting takeaways.
Wow, you're blowing my mind here, and it's basically like saying that for me, because I've got Charge and Chuck Gold here, but obviously in this experiment it's not you tell me if I'm wrong, but it's not necessarily saying Goomba Mii Racing Suit would outscore Charging Chuck Gold, but rather that it would give you more optimal coverage overall and therefore give you more scoring potential across all the courses. Is that assumption correct?
That's correct, and if I'm not mistaken, Charge Chuck Gold was not on the list. I can quickly look up how many appearances he had in the last 10 tours.
I guess if you're looking at ranked appearances, then he's possibly not going to win there.
Yeah, he had some interesting ones, but
it's challenging my my investment strategy for sure, because it's making me think that I should be going in on a non-plus skill Mii. I know a lot of people went in on the cheap Mii Racing Suit, and when I say a lot of people, I mean like 2 people that I know, but you know, but they talk about it all the time. It appears all the time, and got some good buffs this tour with the theme of squeaky clean sprint as well. So there's a real validity to that, and of course, if you just need to go for a double coin frenzy, you front run, you get some clean lines, you pick up as many actions as possible. That can actually be just as fun as grinding out Lucky 7 or Giant Banana or anything like that as well. So did you want to add anything about Charge and Chuck Gold, or shall we move into our conclusions?
For reference, Charge Chuck Gold's 9 ranked appearances versus Goomba Mii Racing Suit 11 ranked appearances, and then maybe you can scroll just across the file a little bit just to give a feeling how it looks like for the different accounts, and we can of course also make this file available if you want to deep dive into how this could have looked like for the different account types. I think what is worth mentioning is that we always, for all the accounts, I think except of the whale account, we have some interesting non-plus skill Mii Racing Suit. For the left Gold Pass account with 0.9 across the board, it was the Spike Mii Racing Suit. Then, Spike Mii Racing Suit is actually chosen for the whale and both the Gold Pass accounts. So this has some nice gap that it would have filled across the last 10 tours. And then for the free-to-play accounts, it's the Piranha Plant Mii Racing Suit. As we have seen, it's had 12 appearances. So if you would have maxed it out or leveled up high enough, then you would have gotten a lot of usage out of the Piranha Plant Mii Racing Suit. It's amazing.
It's really fascinating. Cool. All right, should we jump across? Guys, thanks for sticking with us. I know this episode is a long one, and a deep one, but we really wanted to break this down, and I really wanted to finish with some conclusions, what we've learned, and I'll rattle through these, Flo, but you jump in as I go through as well. So let's just come to some conclusions about what we know on the Mii suit, based on these myths. As we talked about, you know, we're saying all sorts of things like they're only good for free-to-play players. I think you already kind of got a sense of where we're going with this, but the first one is this, that while individual drivers can't compete with Mii base points for scoring potential, certain plus skill drivers still have long-term value, whether that be showing up at ranked, whether that be getting some great coverage. If you look at the very first table that we showed, it did have both Charging Shark Gold and PD Piranha Gold on there as well. The next conclusion we can make is that additionally, all players still need some non-Mii drivers to efficiently cover certain courses in ranked and ACR each tour. So it's not like any player can only invest in Miis. When we looked at the optimal account, there was still a decent chunk, I think it was something around 30% of drivers, non-Mii drivers, are still required to cover all the courses. So out of those 68, still 30 something percent. Flo, jump in if I haven't quite got that right.
No, that's correct. Correct.
Cool. Our third conclusion here, investing in certain Mii suits still makes sense for free-to-play players who don't purchase every Mii, providing valuable scoring potential, especially for all-cup ranking. And interestingly, for the really free-to-play end, it actually, you might think it should be Gold Mii and question mark Block Mii and some of these others, but actually, it looks like it might be Piranha Plant Mii or some of these other ones that are showing up more frequently in ranked especially. So that's something that might be a little bit mind-blowing for some of you. It certainly is for me. And then our final conclusion here, Miis make a ranked easy on weeks when they appear. So some non-Miis appear in ranked more frequently due to more coverage. So coming back to the, I guess I'll just jump all the way back to this slide here. Where are we? This one here. Still, it makes sense to invest in both all types of drivers, not just Miis or non-Miis. That's still the best strategy there. So there we go. There are our conclusions. Flo, is there anything you wanted to say as we finish out about any of these conclusions or any of our myths? Anything we might not have covered or touched on so far?
Yes, so of course there's one important thing to mention, that these are just some experiments that are hopefully pretty accurate, but of course they are just from so for example, the ranked appearances were for the last 10 tours. So if I would repeat the next tour for then including next week's next tour's ranked, and the last one would fill out, then the results might look differently. So please take it with a grain of salt. There might be even some way that you have only Miis or only non-Miis, and you would still reach something like 90% or 95% of the rank's total scoring potential. So just because you don't are close to what is suggested in the last table, for example, that doesn't mean that your investments are suboptimal. They might be pretty well because you have different cards and gliders, for example, that they pair with, and also different drivers previously leveled on their tracks. So this is of course important to keep in mind. And then of course we are now speaking only in terms of meta and optimal strategy and so on. Of course, if you just like the non-Miis better than the Miis, also the other way around, then just go for it. As we can see, the difference is not that big. It's not like that one way is scoring 20% higher than the other way, but it's rather in the area of 5 to 10% maximum, speaking of a limited amount of tickets. So I think both ways are fine. But of course, in the future, the Mii base points will still be increasing, or at least we don't know.
That's right.
Whether they will start now. So if we look at this again in half a year, it might be 10 to 50%, something like that of difference. So if you want to be on the safe side, then probably investing in more Miis or more plus skill Miis especially is the safer way to do so.
Absolutely, and I think what's interesting in my conclusion from all of this is that maybe Nintendo, maybe we need to give them a little bit more credit than we give them when it comes to balancing the game, because there is an aspect of the way that they buff Miis and the way that they buff normal drivers, the way that they manage ranked appearances and all of that, which does actually balance. You can even see that between the plus skill Miis and the non-plus skill Miis. That, I mean, one of my takeaways from all of this is that the non-plus skill Miis are actually a lot more powerful than you might think. And so based on that, you know, I think, yeah, maybe they deserve a little bit more credit that while some things like Gold Mii are ridiculously powerful, there is still some sense of balancing overall when you actually factor in every course and a full strategy that applies to all the courses that you need to cover and ranked every week. So yeah, hey Flo, just want to say a massive thank you to you for putting all the effort into making this episode happen. I know it's something that we've had on our bucket list for a while now, wanting to cover this off and really hit on this. So I really appreciate the work that you've put into this, and of course Ticket Time as well. If you guys haven't tried out Ticket Time, which we've kept mentioning in this video, Ticket Time is an app which you can put your own inventory in, and rather than you trying to work out are Mii's better or non-Mii's better, Ticket Time will do it for you. It will tell you the best upgrades for you. It's predictive in nature. It looks back at the courses that it's already got, but it also predicts, based on how new an item is, its potential to get coverage on new courses or coverage that it hasn't quite seen yet. So really amazing app. It really should take the guesswork out of investing in your account, so give it a go. We did a video recently with StudFit where we looked at his inventory, so make sure to check out that video as well. And as I mentioned, we've got heaps more coming on the channel, including an announcement video around membership. So stay tuned for that. I'm really excited to share that with you. But Flo, why don't you say goodbye to your fans, and then we'll wrap up this video.
Yes, so I hope you liked this video and these experiments, these contents. So if you have any ideas, or maybe have noticed something that was that could have been analyzed better, then just let us know, and we will try our best to improve these experiments if somehow feasible. Of course, we can't. I actually had some experiments that were running more than a day, because I really wanted to find some optimal coverages, but unfortunately also computation power is somehow limited. But yeah, I think the experiments were quite well in terms of what they want to achieve, and I hope you like them, and if you have any more ideas, then just let us know.
Awesome guys, thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned to the channel for much more. Hit like, hit subscribe, and we will see you in the next video. Bye bye.